A young nurse got kicked out of the hospital for the passing of a patient. But the truth won't die. The evening was still young in Houston, Texas, when Lana Mireles resumed her shift. Little did she know that would be her final moment in that hospital. She never saw it coming. It was just after 7 p.m., and the night staff was filtering in, exchanging clipped greetings and stifled yawns. Most were simply clocking in. Lana, though, wore her scrubs like a second skin. She carried her purpose with every step. At 26, Lana had already earned a reputation. Families remembered her. She was the nurse who sat with the dying, who read books to Alzheimer's patients, who knew that healing wasn't always physical. Tonight was her 4th night shift in a row. Her back ached, her eyes stung, but her smile remained steady. Because in room 409, someone needed her. Arthur Malloy, once a towering figure in Houston's legal system, now lay sunken into hospital linens, his body a fragile outline against the stiff bedding. His hands were thin, skin like parchment, but his mind remained sharp. He had no family at his bedside, no long train of visitors. Just Lana, who never treated him like a footnote. When she entered his room, he turned his head slowly, offering her a tired smile. "You again," he said, his voice raspy, his humor intact. "I must be a lucky man." "You're consistent, Judge Malloy," she replied softly, placing a warm hand on his arm. "Still here, still stubborn." He chuckled weakly. "That's what my enemies used to say in court." She adjusted the pillows behind him and took a seat. "How are we feeling tonight?" "Ready," he said plainly. "Not sick, not scared, not resigned. Just ready." Lana paused. "Judge," she began, but he raised a frail hand. "I'm not asking for permission, Miss Mireles. Just trust. There's a copy of my DNR in the file. I signed it. My lawyer signed it. It's real. And tonight, if it happens, don't let them bring me back. Not again." Her heart thudded quietly. She'd heard this before, but tonight there was something different in his tone. A softness, a certainty. "I understand," she whispered. And she meant it. He closed his eyes, exhaling with something that sounded like peace. The machines hummed beside them, a rhythmic beep, a steady flow of oxygen. Lana didn't leave the room for almost an hour. She just sat there, listening to him breathe. Sometimes silence was the most powerful medicine. Outside the room, the hospital moved like clockwork. Medcarts wheeled by. Laughter crackled from the break room. Nurses exchanged updates over lukewarm coffee. But inside room 409, time slowed. Around 9:42 p.m., Judge Malloy stirred slightly. Lana leaned in. He opened his eyes once more. "Thank you," he said, "not for medicine, not for treatment, but for presence." His breathing slowed. She held his hand, her thumb gently tracing the top of his knuckles. Then came the moment, soft, almost imperceptible. The beeping faltered. The heart monitor dipped. And then, stillness. Lana stared at the screen, waiting. 1 second. 2. 3. The flat line confirmed what her instincts already knew. He was gone. She rose quietly and followed protocol. She pressed the call button. Then she stepped into the hallway to notify the attending physician, her face calm but respectful. Moments like this never got easier, but Lana believed in dignity, in honoring the crossing from life to death as something sacred. Dr. Bennett arrived within minutes, flanked by 2 interns. He glanced at the monitor, jotted a time of death, and murmured something to one of the aides. It was clinical, detached. Lana stayed by the doorway, silently observing. But then something strange happened. The aide whispered into Dr. Bennett's ear. His expression shifted. Not with grief, but with discomfort. He turned toward Lana slowly, eyes narrowing, and asked, "You were the one with him when he passed?" She nodded. "Yes, I was with him for the last hour." "And you followed protocol?" "I did. He had a DNR on file, and—" "Hold on," he interrupted. "Who told you there was a DNR?" Lana blinked. "Judge Malloy himself. I confirmed it weeks ago. It's in his chart, signed and notarized." The aide flipped through a clipboard, then tapped a page. "There's nothing here. No DNR. At least not in the digital file." A chill crept down her spine. "There should be," she said, trying to steady her voice. "I saw it. We all did. It was scanned in. Maybe it was removed. Maybe you were mistaken," Dr. Bennett said, now eyeing her with a tone of suspicion instead of support. "I wasn't mistaken," Lana said, trying to remain composed. "The patient and his legal representative submitted it. If you check." Thank you, Nurse Mireles. He cut her off coldly. You can return to your station. Lana hesitated. Something about the exchange didn't sit right. The DNR had been in that file. She had discussed it with the attending a week ago. Why was it suddenly missing? As she stepped out of the room, she caught the eye of the unit supervisor, a woman named Carla who had always been kind, but now looked at her like a stranger. Lana gave her a gentle nod. Carla looked away. By 10:15 p.m., the whispers had begun. Down in the nurse's break room, two orderlies sat huddled over their phones, casting glances Lana's way. A physician assistant passed her in the hallway without a word. The charge nurse, usually quick to joke, now responded to her with clipped, formal tones. It was as if an invisible verdict had already been handed down. Lana made her way to the nurse's station and began documenting the time of death, just as protocol dictated. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed slowly, deliberately, choosing every word with care. But the air had changed. It was thick now, heavy with tension. Not grief, not sorrow, but suspicion. She stared at the glowing monitor in front of her and felt a quiet fear grow inside. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because she knew how quickly systems, especially big, polished institutions like Ridgewell Memorial, could decide someone's fate based on optics, not truth. And tonight, the optics were bad. A respected judge had died on her watch. A missing DNR. A new intern rotation. An administration with a reputation to protect. As the hour crept toward midnight, Lana stood at the end of the hallway, watching the hum of the hospital unfold like normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Every step she took echoed just a little louder. Every voice dropped a little quieter when she passed. She was still Nurse Lana Mireles. Still the one who had held an old man's hand as he passed peacefully. But in their eyes, she could already feel it. Something had shifted. And in her gut, she knew. The night shift that had just begun would be the last one she'd ever work at Ridgewell. She never saw it coming. But the walls were already closing in. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fresh coffee when the sun broke over Houston that morning. Birds chirped faintly outside the third-floor windows, but inside Ridgewell Memorial, something colder stirred. Lana Mireles was running on fumes, but she'd made it through the night, or so she thought. She had just finished updating charts and delivering her final rounds when her name crackled through the intercom. Nurse Mireles, please report to administration. Immediately, her fingers paused on the medication log. The voice was formal, clipped. Not her charge nurse. Not even the usual desk staff. Something wasn't right. She stood, tugging her scrub top into place, ignoring the thudding in her chest. Her feet moved automatically down the hall past nurses she'd trained with, cried with, celebrated with. But this morning, none of them made eye contact. One pretended to check vitals on a machine that wasn't on. Another turned sharply down a corridor the moment Lana passed. She pushed through the frosted glass doors of the administrative wing, where the scent of polish would replace disinfectant. The receptionist didn't smile, just pointed. Conference room B. When Lana stepped inside, she was greeted by silence and eyes. Four figures sat on the other side of the polished oak table. Chief Administrator Wallace, HR Director Denise Marks, Legal Liaison Tom Reyes, and Head Nurse Carla Jennings, the same woman who used to call her Laney with warmth, who once cried with her during a patient loss. But today, Carla's face was stone. Please have a seat, Wallace said, gesturing to the single chair across from them. It was deliberate. No roundtable discussion, no circle of peers. Just Lana, in scrubs still stained faintly from a night spent holding life and death, sitting across from a tribunal. She sat, her back straight, her mind racing. Wallace cleared his throat. Nurse Mireles, thank you for coming. I'm afraid this isn't a pleasant conversation. We've reviewed the events of last night, specifically surrounding the passing of Mr. Arthur Malloy in room 409. Lana's stomach dropped. We're deeply concerned, Wallace continued. According to the chart, you were the sole medical staff present when his vitals ceased. Is that correct? Yes, she answered, steady but uncertain. I stayed with him. He was under palliative care. We'd discussed. Please only answer the questions asked, Tom Reyes interrupted, voice smooth like a lawyer in court. Lana blinked. This wasn't a debrief. It was an interrogation. Was a DNR order located in Mr. Malloy's file? Denise Marks asked. It was, Lana replied. It had been there for weeks, signed, dated, and scanned into his chart. I personally, because our current records, Wallace interjected, pushing forward a printout, shown no such order. The chart you accessed last night had no active DNR, which means by policy, resuscitation should have been attempted. Lana stared at the paper, her heart pounding. It wasn't just wrong, it was empty. Sanitized. As if the last month of care, of conversation, of human choice, had been wiped away. That's not possible, she said quietly. I verified it myself. Mr. Malloy's lawyer submitted it. It was reviewed by the care team. Yet, when the time came, Wallace cut in, you failed to initiate CPR. You did not call a code blue. You documented a natural passing and stood by, knowingly, as a patient flatlined. Lana sat straighter now, her voice tightening with emotion. Because that's what he asked for. That's what he wanted. He made peace with it. I honored his dignity. You know me. I would never. Carla finally spoke, but her words were cold. We have a responsibility, Lana. If there's no legal documentation in place, we cannot assume anything, even verbal patient wishes. Lana's eyes welled, but she refused to let a tear fall. So the file just disappeared? And you're telling me this is my fault? We're telling you, Wallace said, folding his hands, that a serious protocol breach occurred. And as the nurse in charge during the incident, you are accountable. She stared at them all. For pairs of eyes, guarded, clinical, detached. People who had once trusted her, even praised her, now pretending not to know her at all. Effective immediately, Denise said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Your employment with Ridgewell Memorial is terminated. Lana didn't reach for the envelope. She couldn't move. You're making a mistake, she whispered. This isn't about policy. This is about protecting your image. The room fell silent. I know what this is, she continued. He was a judge. He was high profile. You don't want bad press. So you found your scapegoat. Tom Reyes shifted in his chair but said nothing. Lana stood slowly, her knees trembling under her. You're burying the truth to save yourselves. But I promise you, one day, it will resurface. Wallace only nodded toward the door. Security will escort you to retrieve your belongings. She walked out on her own. The hallway back to the nurse's wing felt longer than usual. The whispers she heard now weren't imaginary. Someone snuck a glance. Another nudged a friend. Gossip always spread fast in hospitals, faster than blood work, faster than prescriptions. And today, she was the story. Lana stepped into the staff locker room. Her hands moved on autopilot. Opening her locker, pulling out her water bottle, her spare shoes, the photo of her niece taped to the door. She folded her stethoscope into her tote like it no longer belonged to her. The door opened behind her. Carla entered. Lana didn't turn. Did you know? Carla was silent for a moment. The DNR's gone, Lana. That's all the system sees. But you know it was there, Lana said. You saw it too. Carla's voice broke slightly. I can't speak to that. Lana finally turned to face her. You could, but you won't. Carla looked down, ashamed. You were like a sister to me, Lana whispered. You held my hand when I lost Mr. Grant. You told me this place had integrity. Carla opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. Lana shook her head. They're not firing me because I failed. They're firing me because I didn't lie. She closed the locker one last time and walked past Carla, past the judgment, past the silence. By the time she reached the parking lot, the Houston sun had fully risen. Cars rolled in for the day shift. Nurses in fresh uniforms carried coffee cups and lunchboxes, chatting about their weekends. Life moved on. But for Lana, something sacred had been shattered. She sat in her car for a long time, staring out at the hospital where she had poured so much of herself, her heart, her sweat, her sleepless nights. And now, her name was stained, her reputation questioned. But even as the tears finally came, something inside her remained unbroken. She had told the truth. She had honored a man's final wish. She had not betrayed herself. They had taken her badge, her job, her place in the system. But they hadn't taken her soul. Not yet. The Houston sky had turned gray by the time Lana pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex. A light drizzle coated her windshield, blurring the outlines of the world around her, trees, sidewalks, people, all smeared into watercolors. She didn't turn off the engine right away. The soft hum of the car gave her a strange sense of safety, like if she stayed inside, the rest of it wouldn't be real. But it was. Her job was gone. Her badge, stripped. Her name tarnished. She finally forced herself to get out. The moment the car door opened, The rain met her face like a cold slap. She didn't bother running inside or covering her head. She just walked slowly, water soaking into her scrubs, the same ones she wore when Judge Malloy passed. Inside her apartment, silence greeted her like an old friend. No answering machine beeps. No missed calls blinking. Just the rhythmic dripping from her rain-soaked hair hitting the hardwood floor. She dropped her bag by the door and stood there, unmoving, like her body had forgotten what it meant to be home. Then it all hit her. The weight, the shame, the injustice, the heartbreak. She sank to the floor, curled into herself like a child, and cried, not with rage, but with a grief that reached deep into her bones. Not just for what had been done to her, but for what had died inside her, her trust in the very system she'd dedicated her life to. The next morning, the world had already moved on, but it hadn't moved kindly. By 8 a.m., her phone buzzed with a flood of alerts. A local medical blog had posted a short blurb. Nurse terminated from Ridgewell after breach in end-of-life protocol. Comments followed. Hundreds. She let a patient die. Why become a nurse if you can't follow rules? She should lose her license. Disgusting. What if it was my father? The silence of her apartment grew heavier. She didn't reply to anyone. Not to the nurse who messaged her with, "Thinking of you. Hope you're okay." Not to the former classmate who wrote, "I knew something was off about that hospital." Not even to the voicemail from her mother. She switched off her phone and left it face down on the coffee table. She didn't eat. Not really. Crackers maybe, a glass of water, but nothing of substance. Not when every bite reminded her of the hospital cafeteria where she'd sat laughing with her team just a week ago. The weight she'd gained during late-night shifts slowly fell away, but it didn't make her feel lighter. She stopped going outside. She couldn't. Her neighborhood grocery store suddenly felt like a threat. What if someone recognized her from the article? What if they whispered? What if they believed the headlines? She stayed in, behind curtains, beneath silence. Somewhere in that fog of isolation, a message arrived. She almost didn't see it. It was an email, simple subject line, from the Malloy family. Her heart seized as she opened it. "Dear Nurse Mireles, I don't know if you'll see this, but I had to try. My name is Miriam Malloy. Arthur was my father. I've heard what happened, and I'm so sorry. I want you to know, he spoke of you often. He said you made him feel like a man again, not just a patient. He trusted you. I don't know where his paperwork went or why they've treated you this way. But please, don't think for 1 second that you were wrong. You gave him peace. He told me that, and I believe him. I'll be in touch again, if that's all right." With gratitude, Miriam, Lana stared at the screen, her hands trembling. She didn't cry this time. She just stared, numb, hollow, and stunned. A part of her wanted to reply immediately. Another part couldn't even lift a finger. The wound was still too fresh. The silence inside her was too loud. So she closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the message echo in her heart. Someone knew the truth. Someone saw her. The days dragged on in muted repetition. Wake. Stare. Shower. Sleep. Repeat. Her apartment, once cozy and full of personality, now felt like a waiting room for the rest of her life, static, airless, suspended in time. And yet, something inside her refused to give out completely. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't strength, even. It was something quieter, like a pilot light flickering in her chest. A soft pulse that whispered, "You did the right thing." Every time the shame surged, when the guilt crept in, when the loneliness crushed her, that voice returned. You did the right thing. It didn't erase the pain, but it steadied her, like a lighthouse far off in a storm. The storm was real, the humiliation, the loss, the betrayal, but so was the light. And she clung to it. Some days, that belief was all she had. Other days, it almost felt like enough. The silence around her had become a cocoon. But outside, the storm was growing. Louder, darker, reaching the ears of people beyond her small apartment. Former patients had begun asking questions. Families who knew her work were pushing for answers. And though Lana couldn't see it yet, ripples had begun to form in places she never imagined. But inside, in that quiet space between heartbreak and hope, she waited. She didn't fight. She didn't shout. She didn't argue with the world. She simply waited, not for revenge, not for justice, but for the truth. Because the truth, like a seed buried in deep soil, doesn't stay hidden forever. And Lana Mireles knew in her heart. No matter how loud the storm got outside, the truth would rise. And when it did, it would speak for her. The boxes sat half-packed in Lana's living room, like ghosts of a life she was trying to escape. Medical textbooks were stacked on the floor. Scrubs, some still folded, others bunched and faded from countless night shifts, waited quietly in a small suitcase. She wasn't moving towards something new. She was just trying to leave behind the silence. It had been nearly 2 weeks since her termination from Ridgewell Memorial. In that time, no formal apology had come. No colleagues reached out. Her mother called once, but Lana didn't answer. There was nothing to say that wouldn't collapse under the weight of it all. She was sitting on the edge of her couch, laptop open but untouched, when the knock came. 3 short raps. Not rushed. Not urgent. Just steady. Lana's breath caught. She wasn't expecting food, friends, or packages. Cautiously, she walked toward the door, her bare feet silent on the cold hardwood. She cracked it open, and there stood a woman she didn't recognize. Tall. Refined. Windblown dark hair swept into a loose twist. Eyes that looked like they'd cried, but refused to break. Lana Mireles? The woman asked gently. Yes, Lana replied, cautious. My name is Miriam Malloy, the woman said. I'm Arthur Malloy's daughter. The name hit like thunder in Lana's chest. Miriam held out a large, weathered envelope, thick, yellowed, and carefully sealed. My father asked his lawyer to mail this to you in the event of his death. It was sent to the hospital first. When the news about you came out, I had his attorney track down your home address from the HR file in the care report. I needed to deliver it myself. Lana's voice shook. You came all this way? I had to, Miriam said. After everything they did to you, this letter, what's inside? It belongs in your hands. For a moment, neither woman moved. Lana just stared at the envelope, her name written in looping, deliberate cursive, Lana Mireles, RN. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was his. I don't know exactly what's in it, Miriam added, but I know how much you meant to him. Lana stepped aside, offering a seat without speaking, but Miriam gently declined. I won't stay long, she said. I just wanted to say this face to face. Thank you. My father died in peace, and I believe it's because of you. Lana's throat tightened. Her hands, still trembling, accepted the envelope. He told me, Miriam continued, that you listened when no one else did, that you sat with him when the pain got bad, that you treated him like more than just a dying man, that you saw him. Tears welled in Lana's eyes, silent but steady. I hope this letter gives you some of your power back, Miriam said. You deserve that much. She touched Lana's shoulder gently, just once, then turned and walked away, her heels echoing softly down the hallway. Lana closed the door behind her and just stood there. A breeze from the cracked window stirred a nearby curtain. The apartment had never felt so quiet and so alive all at once. She moved to the couch, slowly, like someone carrying glass. She sat down, turned the envelope over in her hands, and breathed. Then she carefully peeled it open and unfolded the letter inside. The scent of parchment filled the room. The ink was still bold. Her hands trembled, but her eyes didn't blink as she read, Dear Nurse Mireles, if you're reading this, I've likely left this world behind. That means you were with me at the end, just as I asked. I want to say thank you. You didn't treat me like a burden. You never rushed. You didn't hide your heart behind gloves and protocol. You looked me in the eye when you spoke. You listened. You laughed. You even sat beside me in silence, which, if you ask me, takes more courage than any treatment chart. This may sound strange, but in my final days, I felt more alive than I had in years, and it was because of you. I also know what kind of storm may follow my passing. My name carries weight in this city, and sometimes that weight crushes the wrong people. If they try to question you, if they come after your name or your license, remember this. You did the right thing. The DNR I signed was valid. Witnessed. Filed. And if it's suddenly missing, then someone erased it. But you honored my choice when it counted. You gave me dignity when the system forgot what that meant. You have every right to be angry, but I hope you don't carry bitterness. Let your kindness remain intact. It is your greatest weapon, and this world needs it. Thank you for letting me go gently. With respect, Arthur Malloy. Lana didn't realize she was crying until her vision blurred. But they weren't the hot, silent tears of shame anymore. They were the kind that came when a dam inside you breaks and something sacred flows free. The letter rested against her chest. She closed her eyes and let it stay there, feeling the truth beat in time with her heart. The hospital had tried to silence her. The world had turned its back. But Arthur Malloy had left behind more than memories. He had left his truth and entrusted it to her. She didn't know what would come next. Whether she'd work as a nurse again, whether she would ever trust the system that had betrayed her. But in that moment, none of it mattered, because someone believed her. And now she had proof that she hadn't just done her job, she had fulfilled a human promise. Lana folded the letter gently, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it in a small box she kept for her most precious things. For the first time in weeks, she stood taller. The world outside hadn't changed. But inside, something had begun to heal. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It carried a voice from beyond the grave, whispering, "You did the right thing." The morning Lana stepped outside again, the sky was clear and wide, like it had been holding its breath for her. A week had passed since Miriam Malloy's visit, and though her world still felt fragile, the letter tucked safely in her desk had lit something within her, a truth she could hold onto. The media hadn't been as silent. Whispers of the missing DNR began to stir in online forums and nursing boards. Someone leaked the existence of the letter. Then came the emails, first from a local journalist, then from a national outlet. Headlines were drafted. Editors called for interviews. Fired nurse speaks out. Truth behind the judge's death. The hospital that chose silence. Lawyers reached out too. Reputable firms. High-powered litigators. They offered to take her case pro bono. Wrongful termination. Defamation. Emotional distress. Lana had a case, and they knew it. "You could win, Lana," one attorney said over the phone. "We could bury them. Make them pay." She thanked them, but her voice was measured, her tone distant. "I'll think about it." And she did. She paced her small apartment, imagining courtrooms, headlines, statements carved from anger. She pictured the administrators from Ridgewell Memorial being forced to apologize publicly, their polished reputations cracking under scrutiny. But every time her imagination wandered that path, she saw Judge Malloy's eyes, calm, tired, kind. He hadn't asked her to fight for him. He'd asked her to remain kind. One evening, she sat down with her laptop, opened a blank document, and typed a single sentence, "I forgive them." It surprised even her. She stared at it for a long time. Not because it didn't feel true, but because it did. The next day, she released a public statement, short but sincere. It was posted quietly on her own social media page, without press agents or headlines. No sensational language. No finger-pointing. "I've been advised to sue. I've been asked to speak. But instead, I choose to heal. I forgive Ridgewell Memorial for letting me go. I understand they were protecting something broken, and I hope one day they find the courage to fix it. But I won't become like them. I will not trade my peace for vengeance. Thank you to everyone who believed me. Your voices matter. But this is enough. Let grace speak louder than anger." She turned off her phone after posting it, not expecting much. But by the next morning, the post had gone viral. Thousands of comments poured in. Nurses from all over the country called her brave. Patients she had treated before shared stories of her quiet compassion, how she'd stayed late to comfort their mother, or held their child's hand during a terrifying diagnosis. A woman she didn't remember messaged, "You were the reason I didn't give up on myself." Petitions started. Justice for Lana Mireles. Thousands signed in support. Local churches, patient advocacy groups, and even retired judges issued letters condemning what had happened to her. Not because Lana demanded it, but because her humility revealed the failure of the system more clearly than outrage ever could. She never stepped into a courtroom. She never needed to. Her name, once shadowed by rumor, now glowed with something untouchable. Not because she fought back, but because she forgave. In the quiet, Lana found something louder than vengeance, something cleaner than victory. She had lost her job, yes, but in the eyes of the world, she had regained something greater, her honor. And this time, it was unshakable. The email came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Lana had almost missed it, tucked between newsletters and unread job alerts she never opened anymore. The subject line was simple: opportunity at Westridge General Hospital. She clicked it, expecting another empty offer or automated message, but instead, she found a letter personally signed by the chief medical officer. They had seen her statement. They had followed the story, not the scandal, but her silence, her poise, her decision to choose grace over retaliation. They weren't offering her a nursing role. They were offering her a new chapter. Head of Patient Advocacy. A position created with her in mind. a role designed not only to care for patients, but to stand for them, to ensure that no one's voice, no one's dignity, ever got buried under bureaucracy again. The letter ended with one line: "We don't want the noise around you. We want the truth within you." Lana stared at the screen for a long time, her heart thudding. She hadn't applied. She hadn't asked. And yet here it was, a door she hadn't known she needed, now open wide. 2 weeks later, she stood at the entrance of Westridge General, her name already printed on the badge clipped to her chest. Her new uniform was a deep shade of navy, the stitching crisp, the title beneath her name reading, Head of Patient Advocacy. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the lobby doors, not from fear, but awe. Inside, staff waited with quiet smiles. The HR director offered her a warm hug. Nurses nodded with familiarity, not pity. And as she walked the polished halls for the first time, patients looked up at her with something she hadn't seen in a long time. Trust. Not because of her title, but because of her story, one they had all come to know. Not the version the hospital tried to bury, but the one that rose above it, the story of a woman who chose integrity over vengeance. Her office was modest but bright, with a corner window and a single orchid already blooming on her desk. A card waited beside it, and signed but handwritten. "Thank you for not staying silent, even when you were quiet." Her first day was full of paperwork, tours, meetings. But the moment that stayed with her happened just before lunch. A young woman in a hospital gown wheeled herself toward Lana's office door, peeking in nervously. "Are you the nurse from the story?" she asked softly. Lana smiled. "Yes, but I'm here to listen to yours." That moment said it all. She had not just survived the storm. She had stepped through it, not as a victim, but as something new. Not just a nurse, but a guardian of dignity. And in that new role, Lana Mireles finally found what the storm had been shaping all along, her purpose. The morning was quiet as Lana stepped out of the car, a bouquet of fresh white lilies cradled in her arms. The cemetery was still, dappled in soft light, with only the breeze and birdsong to bear witness. It had been 7 months since Arthur Malloy's passing, and just as long since she had stood still long enough to let everything catch up. Now she was here. She walked slowly along the gravel path, passing rows of names and memories etched in stone. When she reached his grave, she knelt down and gently brushed a few leaves from the granite. Judge Arthur Malloy, 1942 to 2024. Dignity in life, peace in death. Lana placed the flowers at the base, their stems nestled beside the brass lettering, and reached into her coat pocket. She unfolded the letter. The original one, creased and worn, read countless times but never out loud. Today, she was ready. Her voice was soft but steady as she began, reading his words into the wind. "You did the right thing," she said, quoting from the last paragraph. "You gave me dignity when the system forgot what that meant." Her throat tightened. She paused, swallowed. "Even when the world looked away," she read, "you did right, nurse." A tear slipped down her cheek, but it didn't fall from sadness. It came from a place far deeper, a place of peace, of closure, of knowing she had carried something heavy and placed it gently where it belonged. She looked up at the sky, the soft blue expanse stretching wide and calm above the trees. A light wind brushed her face, lifting a strand of her hair across her cheek. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the quiet. When she opened them, she wasn't alone. A young woman stood a few feet away, hesitating. "Excuse me, are you Lana Mireles?" The girl asked shyly. Her ID badge identified her as a nursing student from a nearby university. Lana smiled. "Yes, I am." "I'm sorry to interrupt," the student said, stepping closer. I saw your story online, the interview, the post you wrote. It changed how I think about being a nurse. Would it be okay to take a photo with you?" Lana chuckled softly. "Only if you promise me one thing." The student leaned in, eager. "Anything." "Promise you'll always listen to your patient," Lana said. "No matter what anyone else says." "I promise," the girl whispered. They took the photo. No flashes. Just a still moment between two women, one starting her journey, the other finally understanding hers. As they began walking back toward the gates, their figures grew smaller in the distance. The camera of the world pulled back slowly. The woman they tried to bury in silence had risen not just in truth, but in legacy. And now, the truth walked beside her. Louder, brighter, stronger than ever. If you enjoyed this powerful story of Lana Mireles, Judge Arthur Malloy, and the journey from silence to grace, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Lana's story moved you most, and how do you feel about how it all ended? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. We always appreciate seeing how far our stories reach. Your support helps us bring more meaningful narratives to life.